Hello, welcome or welcome back. If you're my family, it's better be welcome back. In today's video, I will be reading 4 books because I have 4 siblings and each one of them picked something off of my bookshelf for me to read. So in order of birth, we have my big brother, my older brother, and he picked How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. The subtitle of this book is Recognize Your Patterns, Heal from Your Past, and Create Yourself. I bought this, back in 2020 or 2021 when I was big into my spiritual self-help journey. It's not just meant to be read passively. It's meant to be worked on, hello, how to do the work. You're doing the work. You're reading, you're thinking, you're journaling, you're writing, you're reflecting. And so I think this one I'm going to be reading sort of throughout the whole time because I think this is going to take a while because I do want to try to do it justice and do what I, the reader, the participant, am supposed to be doing so I can get the full experience. Next in birth order comes my little brother who picked, I don't have the book. I left the book in the car, but the book is Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. It is Matthew McConaughey's memoir. Particularly, it's framed through this concept of green lights. And he believes that life offers you sort of these signs, these go ahead opportunities, which he calls green lights. He's taking us through the journey of the green lights that have gotten him to where he is today. Next, we have, let me get the book. Next comes my little sister who chose All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. So it's about a teenage girl, Marie-Laure, who lives in France during the Nazi occupation of Paris. And it is also about, simultaneously, about a teenage boy, Werner, who is an orphan and is a German boy who is on the other side of the war. He's enlisted to use his talent to track down the resistance. So it is about these 2 teenagers on the opposite side of the war. And I think my understanding is that this is very sad. We have my littlest sister who picked Zoot and Other Plays by Luis Valdez. There are 3 plays in here, Zoot, Bandido, and I don't have to show you no stinking badges. Fun fact, I was actually in a production of Zoot, 14 years ago. The production never actually went into the performance phase, but that was my first exposure to Luis Valdez. So I technically have read Zoot because I was in it, but that was a long, long time ago. So I actually don't really remember, and I'm super excited to read this. Okay, so Zoot deals with the infamous Pachuco riots during the World War II. We've got 2 World War II books. Oh my gosh. I usually hate historical fiction. And here we are. But yes, Zoot deals with the infamous Pachuco riots during World War II. Bandido explores the life and legend of the 19th century California social rebel Tiburcio Vasquez? I don't know. I'll find out. And I don't have to show you no stinking badges explores media images of Hispanics through a staged recreation of the TV situation comedy genre. Oh, sitcom. Interesting. Okay. How is it? This is the 2nd video in a row that I don't physically have all the books. This plus Mr. McConaughey's book will be my reading for the next couple of weeks. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I just finished reading Matthew McConaughey's Greenlight, and I also just finished the most delicious chai tea latte with oat milk I've ever had, so that's great. It was definitely a quick read. That is my first thought on it, is that it was an interesting quick read. Let me take out my notes so I can really look at my notebook. Gorgeous. I got it at a swap. Sorry, I was checking if there was dust on my lens or a scratch, because I just bought this camera. Okay, so my thoughts on Greenlight is that it's very bingeable. So Matthew McConaughey, the way he wrote this, he's been keeping journals, he says, for 35 years, and little scribbles and journals and writings, and he revisited them in order to write this memoir. And so sometimes he'll have them written like this, which is fine because the way it's formatted is very readable. However, sometimes it is formatted. Let me find an example. Okay, so sometimes it's formatted. Oh, I just spit. Sometimes it's formatted like this, which is really cool to have like a scan of his actual writing. But I didn't even read this because it's not integral. It's not integral. It's not integral. Integral. It's not integral. Integral. It's not integral. It's not important to the actual like through line of the story. These are just little things in between sort of his musings. And this is very hard to read. Like his handwriting is very hard to read. And since it didn't actually add to the story itself, and I'm not particularly interested in his musings, I just skipped that stuff. It does have a lot of photos and stuff, which is really cool because Matthew McConaughey is so handsome. And turns out he's been handsome all his life because we get photos from all his life. The page is black and the text is white. And that was also very hard to read. I skipped it. So to be honest, I did skip those little like extra added excerpts of his writing. And it didn't affect the story. It's just, I guess, if you're interested in his philosophy and the way he writes and the way he muses and the way he scribbles, then I think those are cool additions. But as someone who's not, I just wasn't that interested in it. It didn't really affect my reading, so that's fine. Yeah, his story reads like fiction. It's really cool. Like the things he's gone through in his life is really interesting and really great, and it really does feel like you're reading a really cool story, an adventure story, a fictional story. The story is framed in a lens that I think I would have really resonated with in my early 20s, as that was a time where I was sort of more interested in like self-improvement novels and self-development, and I was really sort of like seeking answers and feeling existential and looking for things that had like spiritual philosophy and guidance, and that's sort of how this story is framed. And so I know there would have been a time in my life where this memoir would have been more impactful and cooler to me, but yeah, I'm just not at that point right now. It was funny at times. I did a little no, that's even too loud. I did do a little you know what I mean, like just a little, but nothing beyond that. Okay, so this is the thing I need to talk about, and hold on, let me adjust, because let's get serious. I don't know how to talk about this, but it would be a dishonest review if I didn't mention this. And I had a lot of trouble reading the first 20% of this story and getting into it, and I actually wanted to stop reading it like in the first 40-ish pages, 40 to 50 pages. I was like, I don't want to read this. I don't like this story. I don't want. The reason I feel so weird is because it's me being uncomfortable and me having an opinion on how someone has reflected and is framing the story of their childhood. And this is someone's real life, and it doesn't feel right for me to have an opinion on how Matthew McConaughey sees what happened to him in childhood. Look at this little photo of him, by the way. Look how cute he was. A little cutie. I'm going to try to be careful and intentional about what I'm saying. So in the first 20 pages, Matthew McConaughey is describing a time when his mom, what seems like in that moment, at least, I don't have the context of their whole life, but his mom was calling his dad like fat and was like, okay, fatty, like eat up, fat man. So the dad flips the table. I mean, this is on page 20, but I guess if you don't want to, I guess this could be considered a spoiler, but the dad flips the table and he says, "It was on. My brothers knew the deal. I knew the deal. Mom knew the deal," as she ran to the wall-mounted telephone on the other side of the kitchen to call 911. So it seems like this is something that occurred often enough for them to be like, okay, we know the deal. There is violence happening. This is when we call 911. So that makes me think this was sort of a recurring event in their household. And, you know, the mom pulls out a kitchen knife, and it says that the dad had a broken bloody nose from the mom, and that he is like throwing ketchup on her. It says they dropped to their knees, then to the bloody ketchup covered linoleum kitchen floor, and made love. This is how my parents communicated. And then a few sentences down, it says, this is why my dad broke mom's middle finger to get it out of his face 4 separate times. This is how mom and dad loved each other. Again, this is hard to talk about because this is Matthew McConaughey talking for real about his real life and his real parents and his real, you know what, he put it out for public consumption. I'm gonna try to be sensitive and appropriate, but I'm just gonna say what I feel. He doesn't say like, this is how they learn to love, like, it sucks, I wish they were nicer to each other. He's sort of like saying it like, those wacky kids, like, this is just how they loved. And I think that's a choice. And I think I am uncomfortable with this violence being framed as a type of love. Matthew McConaughey is a famous celebrity. This book will likely reach a lot of people. It is an interesting choice to frame violence as love. It is one that made me uncomfortable. It is one that I don't agree with. There is also instances when he, in his own words, gets ass whoopings, and he's very like thankful for them. And he, as a 50-something-year-old man who wrote this, has chosen to reflect on these as tough love, and he's thankful to his parents for what those ass whoopings taught him. And he thinks it was just another form of love, tough love. And he, even at the very end, he says, so I'm actually glad he acknowledges it. He does say, in ways that some people might consider abusive, but I remember as tough love, and I wouldn't give back one ass whooping I ever got for the value of the values my parents impressed on me. I thank them for that. And it's, again, this is his life. It's fine that he thinks that way. I don't think that way. It's fine that he does. But because he chose to write about it and publish it, then I feel like it's fine for me to talk about how I felt reading it. Because, you know, he chose to publish it. He didn't have to. And again, we're just going to have a difference of opinion, Matthew and I. I think it was abusive, and that's fine. And he knows that some of us are going to think it was, me included. I think it's weird. I was uncomfortable with how much he's framing these instances as, well, that's just how we love. That's just how my family showed love. I read the whole book, and I couldn't let go of that beginning part and how, yeah. Anyways, here's a photo of his mom's broken middle finger that his dad broke. His dad broke his mom's middle finger 4 times. But whatever, as he says, this is how mom and dad loved each other. I mean, he chose to put the photo, and he chose to put this how they loved each other. So that's my issue. All that being said, I'm not going to keep the book. It was fine. I liked it. I liked the story. I think it was cool, like adventure stories. He's obviously done a lot of cool adventure stuff in his life. Cool insight into like Hollywood and how movies get made. I think maybe I'll remember 1 or 2 things here and there that I actually did think were like valuable and inspiring. But as is probably obvious, I really had an issue with including the stories of violence in a very specific framing. And that's okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna keep the book. I came to the park. I'm gonna start reading what's it called? All the Light We Cannot See. And yeah. Oh my god, my hair. I genuinely had to leave right now because this squirrel, I mean, clearly it's had a good life and it's not scared of people and it considers people to be its friend, which is cool, but it was getting way too close. I was starting to like climb on my blanket. No. I love and respect it, but we are not touching each other today. It literally kicked me out of my spot. I was like, you can have it, dude. I'm leaving. Do not get close to me. Do not.
I've hit the halfway point of the book,
and it's really good. It is a 500-ish page book, so I'm about 250 pages in, and it goes by super fast. The author doesn't waste time or pages or space. Everything that's included is deliberate, and it adds to the story, and it's powerful, and it really helps build these characters up as full-fledged human beings. So the story is told in what I would call like 4 quadrants. So we're following Marie and Werner, but sometimes we're following Marie present day, sometimes we're following Marie in the past, working our way up to present day. Sometimes we're following Werner present day, or we're in the past with him working our way up. Present day, by the way, is during the war, like in the war, bombs exploding and stuff. So it's a really hard read in that, you know, it's a tough subject, and sometimes I'm like, I actually don't want to read this. Sometimes I'm like, I actually don't want to read about war, and I don't want to, but I have found myself wanting to know what happens to Marie and Werner, and, you know, I have my assumptions of what I think happens, and I'm just not prepared. I'm not prepared emotionally because they've really been built up to these 2 teenagers, these 2 children that I've come to care about. So I'm kind of nervous, but it's really good. I can see how the author won a Pulitzer Prize. The writing is really good. He writes, gosh, such imagery. Like, he described, you know what, I don't have the book in front of me. I'm not even going to try it because I'm not going to do it justice. But his metaphors are incredible. Unless something crazy happens in the next half, I don't see how I'm not going to love this book. I just finished all 530 pages. I feel like, I feel sick. I feel, it really leaves, man, oh man. So incredible. The writing is really good. Apparently this is now like a Netflix show, like a limited series, and I'm considering watching it, but to be honest, I kind of like don't want to. Some books, you're like desperate to go back into the world. I don't want to go back into the world. I don't want to. I appreciate the craft of the story, and I can appreciate it without wanting to like re-enter it just because it's so depressing. I don't know if I'll watch the show. As a reader, it was very impactful for me to follow their minds and explore like how did children, and do, because war is still prevalent, like how do children make sense of war? How do they justify it to themselves? Or not, and like what fears do they share on both sides, and what happens to innocent kids' minds in the face of evils made up by adults out of, you know, greed and hate and bigotry. I felt very protective of Marie and Werner, and I felt like they were my kin. As a result, like I felt deeply, deeply disappointed in my gut when they made certain decisions to do or not do something. Like I felt like I was like a disappointed aunt, and it really, really hurt me. And I felt anxious, like the you know, the way you might feel letting like your little cousin, I don't know, walk to the bus stop for the first time by themselves. Like I was like, oh, I was anxious. And yes, it's an incredible story, but it is not a light one, and I'm gonna keep it, and I want to reread it down the line, but I need time and I need space, because it is heartbreaking, but a very successful story. I love it so much. I'm a little bit depressed now. So I think what I'm gonna do is, I think I'm gonna clean my stove while I listen to Charlie XCX Brat album, and then afterward I will start reading. Currently listening to How to Do the Work, and She just talked about how somebody with MS has been having really bad side effects with their medication and are going to have to be a wheelchair user. They just decided, sorry, I'm trying to be, they just decided that they were going to heal themselves and they weren't going to do that. They weren't going to be a person with MS with limited mobility. And through Dr. Nicole LePera's, self-healing advice and journey, she chose not to have limited mobility, and therefore she does not have limited mobility. I don't think she's said it. I don't think Dr. LePera has said it point blank, but isn't the inverse of that then anybody with chronic illness, anybody with mobility aids, anybody who's like sick, it's your fault because you didn't like make the decision to heal yourself? Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. That's where my mind is at right now. As you can tell, like, skeptical, and yeah, I'll just talk more about it later. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Okay, I'm back. I've just gotten to the first part where you, the reader, are asked to really like reflect and journal, and so I'll just play the first question out loud, and then I actually am going to pause the audiobook and I'm just gonna really give it a good old think. And I'm gonna do that every time it asks me to, so that by the end of this I can give a true review. A true review. Let's hear what the first question is.
Identify. You often find yourself unable to keep promises to yourself?
Yes, that's a quick one.
Attempting to make new choices or create new habits, but always falling back on your old ones?
Yup.
Do you often find yourself reacting emotionally to events, feeling out of control and even ashamed about your behaviors after the fact? Do you often find yourself distracted and or disconnected from yourself and others and or from the present moment itself?
That one I don't know. I have to think about it. But anyways, yeah, just a sample of the kind of reflecting I will be doing these next couple of days, weeks. I don't know how long it's going to take. Hello. This is going to be a very quick, I think, update. I have made the decision to not finish this book. So this is going to be a DNF. I only got like 50 or so pages in. There's just something weird about it. I decided to look up the holistic psychologist and then the word problematic. And I found a Reddit thread, which I will actually link in my description if you want more information on that. Just things that I could already kind of like gauge from my reading, but also things that I sort of am starting to remember from when I followed her back in 2020. I remember there being other psychologists and mental health professionals speaking out against her, specifically BIPOC professionals, critiquing the fact that she does not acknowledge, and in the book she does, but it does kind of feel like an afterthought. I don't know, maybe that's just my pre-bias reading into the way she talks about it in her book. Again, she believes you are responsible for your healing, and so things like systemic racism and a whole system built to work against you is just a roadblock that you can work your way out of. So back to this Reddit thread that I found. It has bullet point critiques of her and links that you can actually follow for evidence. And I just found out that she does not believe in mental illness, which and she does not believe in therapy, like talk therapy. People feel like she victim blames survivors. And again, I kind of got that vibe. Remember when I was saying about that woman who like healed her MS by deciding she didn't want to be disabled? She followed alt-right, anti-vax, and QAnon-linked influencers on social media, likes their content, downplays their violence, and is followed by January 6th insurrectionists. Hold on, let me click on this stuff. Whoa. Well, anyways, if you want to get into that, you can get into that. If you want to like look more deeply into that, I just know I was getting like a weird vibe from it, and I was like, it's not clicking with me. I'm not gonna finish it. I'm gonna give it away. I'm not saying this is a grift. I'm not saying that this doesn't contain helpful information. I'm just not into it. And then what I've learned from this Reddit post, which may or may not be true, like I would have to do my own research, which I'm not that interested in doing. I'm good. I'm good is what I'm saying. I'm good. So first DNF of the channel. Okay, ya terminé Zoot. And Other Plays by Luis Valdez. This led me down a rabbit hole of like Wikipedia searches and just a lot of Googling and like finding out more about the Zoot riots and Pachucos, and yeah. So I think in order to give a review of this, I need to give a little bit of context first, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the 3 different plays. I wrote down what I want to say for context, so I won't be just like, this is especially important context for Zoot, the title play of the collection. So in 1942 in Commerce, California, which is a neighboring city to East LA, one Jose Diaz died after being found near what is nicknamed the Sleepy Lagoon, which is a reservoir. What happened afterwards is that the LAPD, along with media, took this and rolled with it as far as condemning Mexican-American youth. These are youth who wore Zoot suits, which are these very drapey, fabric-y suits. I'll put some photos up here. And this is during, more context, this is during World War II, where the idea was that we were supposed to be, I wasn't there. They were supposed to be rationing fabric and clothing. And so the Zoot suit could be seen as like unpatriotic and frivolous and excess. And it's like, oh, have you no shame? You're wearing all this extra fabric. So LAPD interviews like hundreds of Mexican-American youths in the area who they believe to be like part of gangs and stuff, and ends up arresting 22 kids or young adults for this murder. That's a lot, and that's bananas. And actually to this day, there is dispute or not one consensus about what was the cause of death or what could have killed Jose Diaz. Basically, this was a really great opportunity to harass and jail a lot of these kids. That's the context. And well, there's also the context of Zoot riots, which a little bit of context. Okay, really quick. Zoot riots happening in LA, but also in different cities across the country, which is where American sailors are beating the hell out of any kid wearing a Zoot suit. And I'm putting the onus on them because the people who got arrested were the Mexican-American youths. And it wasn't even just Mexican-Americans, because they weren't the only ones wearing Zoot suits. Like other, like Filipinos, African-Americans, they were wearing the Zoot suits as well. But American sailors coming in, beating up these Zoot suiters. I'll even include a photo, and this photo is insane, of watching them like with their weapons, just like looking around for anyone with a Zoot suit to beat the hell out of them. Where were the cops? Where do you think the cops were? The cops were there, looking the other way, not caring, except for when a Zoot suiter fought back and then they would get arrested. That's the Zoot suit riots. Okay, my review on the first play in here, Zoot Suit, which is the most, I would say the most famous or popular play of Luis Valdez, because it also got made into a movie, which I did rewatch for this. And look at this notebook. If there's one thing I've got, it's notebooks. Zoot Suit is an important retelling of how the media and police used a murder as a way to villainize, abuse, and attempt to like exterminate and extinguish Mexican-American boys, specifically Pachucos or Zoot suiters, in the 1940s. The narrator in this play, El Pachuco, he is the highlight of the play. He's so freaking cool. He gets to deliver what I think is the best dialogue and monologues in the whole play while donning the Zoot suit. And like, what a powerful choice. He symbolizes the quintessential Pachuco, the quintessential Zoot suit wearing cool guy. And he gets to deliver these crazy good lines. There's this one line where the police is about to beat up the protagonist, Henry Reina. And El Pachuco says, "You don't deserve it. but you're gonna get it anyway. Ugh, just thinking about it now, it's like, that is still the case for so many minority groups who are abused at the hand of law enforcement. Yeah, and that's such a memorable line from the play. You don't deserve it, but you're gonna get it anyway. My issue with this play, because I do have issues, is that the pacing, I think, starts to get lost in the second half. And the reason I think this happened is that it's being dragged down by this love storyline between Alice, like our white savior character, and Henry. And I think this like storyline is so unnecessary and icky, and I hate it. And I think this play would have been, in my opinion, like damn near perfect, if not for that. But that storyline with Alice and Henry, it's so big that I can't forgive it. And I think it takes what I think could have been a perfect play to a play that I only kind of want to go see. Okay, moving on. Bandido's stylistic play within a play take on outlaw Tiburcio Vasquez's hanging is what I think takes it from good to great. So we learn about Vasquez through a melodramatic lens in which Latinos are exaggerated stereotypes, and we see also a more realistic view of Tiburcio Vasquez in which he is more man than myth. And I think it's going back between these two lenses of him that kept me hooked the whole time, and I really wanted to like read it all the way through, which I think is very telling, because reading a play is nowhere near enjoyable as like watching a play. So to want to continue reading it all the way through, I think is a marker of success for the playwright. And then finally, I don't have to show you no stinking badges, is this sort of weird, I don't think I liked it. I didn't hate it, but I don't think I liked it. It was this very sort of like abstract take on the son of a married couple who has made their living playing extras on TV. But of course, they're Mexicans, they're Chicanos, and they're playing gardeners, maids, thugs. So their son, who is a pre-law Harvard student, drops out of Harvard and wants to become an actor and believes that he's destined for a different fate than his parents. And he thinks he can become a superstar and not have to play those characters. We don't know what's real and what's not, and we don't know if we're watching a play or if you're watching like a sitcom, or if the things happening on stage are true, or are they a storyline in a sitcom? Are they in his mind? I don't know. I liked the parents' storyline a lot. I guess it was just too confusing for me. And I didn't like it enough to be compelled by the confusion and like go back and try to figure it out. I will say there are slurs all over the place in these plays. And sometimes it is on purpose to make a point. And sometimes it feels excessive and just out of place and like takes me out of it. I'm like, because sometimes it feels like it's meant to be for comedic value. And I don't think it's funny. You know, they weren't perfect, but I think something like Zoot has lasting impact. Okay, let's wrap up this video now. I read 4 things. I have 2 that I'm going to keep. One that I think was a hit. One that I have complicated feelings about, but I think adds a lot of value to my library. I also have 2 that I cannot even hold up because I already got rid of them. But it was really fun. It was really exciting to have my siblings pick something off my bookshelf. Yeah, this was fun. Thank you so much for watching. And my brother says my videos are too long. My older brother says my videos are too long. And that's probably true, but I have a lot to say about books. So maybe my next one I'll try to keep it shorter. We'll see. All right, bye.